The ballroom shimmered like a dream, its vaulted ceiling glowing under countless crystal chandeliers. A live orchestra played sweeping notes that swirled around polished marble floors. Camera flashes ignited the space in bursts of white light as the city's elite posed in gowns and tuxedos worth more than most homes. At the far end of the room, a beautiful young actress sat alone. She had tried to blend in, tried to smile, but her quiet confidence drew mocking attention. "Wrong table, sweetie," a voice sneered. "This section is for people with actual class, not whatever you are." The words carried just enough for nearby guests to hear. Laughter rippled around her, sharp as broken glass. The actress froze, her hands trembling against the edge of the tablecloth. Then footsteps. A man in a plain shirt, no tuxedo, no tailored suit, walked across the marble floor. He didn't hesitate. He pulled out the chair beside her, drew her close, and spoke with a voice calm and decisive. "That's my seat." Gasps spread like wildfire. The entire hall shifted, murmurs crackling through the air. But before anyone could respond, the silver-haired billionaire at the head table rose abruptly. His movements silenced the orchestra itself. Bowing his head toward the man, his voice carried with reverence. "Finally, you've arrived." The room froze in stunned silence. 36 hours earlier, Ethan Ward stood at his small kitchen sink, sleeves rolled up, soap bubbles clinging to his callous hands. He worked the sponge over chipped plates, the steady rhythm broken only by the sound of crayons scratching at the table behind him. His 8-year-old daughter, Lily, sat cross-legged, tongue caught in concentration as she filled her paper with color. Morning light streamed through the modest apartment window, painting her golden hair like sunlight itself. "Look, Daddy," she chirped, holding up her drawing. It showed a stick-figure man sitting in a grand, ornate chair surrounded by swirls of rainbow hues. "I drew you sitting in the most beautiful seat ever." Ethan dried his hands on a rag and crossed the room to kneel beside her. At 36, his hands bore the marks of a man who labored every day, electrician by day, delivery driver by night. He carried the weight of 2 jobs just to keep food on the table and rent paid. But he never let Lily see the heaviness. "That's a pretty fancy chair, sweetheart," he said, ruffling her hair. "You deserve the most beautiful seat, Daddy," she declared with child certainty. "You're the best person I know." Ethan's smile wavered only for a moment. In his bedroom, hidden in a small wooden box, lay his most precious possession, a burned leather watch strap, charred black from a fire long ago. He never spoke about it, but on quiet nights he would hold it, remembering things he wished he could forget. His phone buzzed, dragging him back. A notification glowed across the crack screen. "Emergency lighting repairs needed. Grand Continental Hotel. Charity gala tomorrow." Some gala for the city's wealthiest. Celebrities, billionaires, power brokers. People who lived in a world he and Lily could only glimpse from a distance. "Come on, Lil," he said, grabbing his toolbox. "Daddy's got to fix some lights." The Grand Continental. The hotel lobby was a palace to wealth. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen fireworks, marble floors polished to mirror perfection, gilded columns stretching to impossible heights. Wealth hung heavy in the air, as real as the perfume trailing from passing guests. Ethan pushed his cart across the gleaming floor, Lily at his side clutching her crayons. Almost immediately, a security guard strode forward, posture rigid. "Excuse me, sir. This entrance is for guests only. Service workers use the back." Ethan calmly held out the work order. "Lighting system repairs. Schedule for today." The guard barely looked. "The service entrance is around back. The lobby isn't appropriate for maintenance staff." Lily tugged at her father's shirt, her voice small. "But, Daddy, there are empty chairs everywhere." Ethan knelt, his rough hands gentle against her shoulders. "Sometimes, sweetheart, empty chairs aren't meant for people like us." As they walked toward the service entrance, Ethan's eyes caught the bold headlines on the concierge desk. "Mystery guests expected at Charity Gala. Host promises special announcement." Journalists speculated wildly about the mysterious VIP who would be revealed. No one had answers. In the dim service corridors, Ethan began his work. The lighting rig above the ballroom was a maze of wiring, switches, and calibration that demanded his full attention. For hours, he climbed ladders, checked circuits, and adjusted bulbs, determined to leave the system flawless. From the corner, Lily continued her drawing. This time, she added more chairs around the ornate one, a table filled with tiny figures. "Daddy," she asked without looking up, "do you think pretty chairs get lonely when nobody sits in them?" Ethan paused, struck by her innocent wisdom. "I think," he said slowly, "the right person always finds their way to the right place. Eventually." Clara Monroe. Elsewhere in the city, Clara Monroe stood before her mirror. At 27, she had everything most actresses dreamed of: fame, wealth, recognition. Yet tonight, staring at her reflection in a satin gown, she felt like the scared girl from nowhere who used to sneak into theaters to watch other people's stories. On her vanity lay the golden embossed invitation to the Grand Continental's Gala. It was legitimate, earned through her career, but she felt like an imposter in a world that always whispered she was enough. Her phone buzzed. A text from her publicist. "Smile for the cameras. Don't let them see you sweat." Easy for him to say. He wasn't the one critics had once dismissed as just another pretty face. By the time she arrived, the red carpet was a gauntlet of flashing bulbs and murmured judgments. Inside, the ballroom was a cathedral of opulence. Tables glittered with silver and crystal. Politicians, moguls, and media royalty mingled like it was their private kingdom. At the reception desk, Clara handed over her invitation. The hostess gave it the briefest glance before smirking. "Miss Monroe." How unexpected. Clara stiffened. "I have an invitation." "Oh, of course you do, dear," the hostess replied sweetly. "The question is whether you're here to find a seat or a sponsor." Nearby socialites laughed. Clara's cheeks burned, but she forced composure. She was guided toward the back of the ballroom, far from the glittering VIP section. When she reached her assigned table, her heart sank further. A woman in a tailored suit was already sitting there. "Excuse me," Clara said softly. "I believe that's my seat." The woman smiled coldly. "Oh, sweetie, I think you're mistaken. This table is for donors who've given more than just appearances." Laughter erupted again. Clara stood frozen, humiliation pressing down like a weight. From the service corridor, Ethan noticed her. He had been packing away tools. But something about the sight of the young woman surrounded by ridicule struck him. She looked familiar, though he couldn't place why. All he knew was this: she didn't belong in that pain. The hotel manager approached Clara with a firm, dismissive smile. "Miss Monroe, perhaps you'd be more comfortable standing during the dinner portion." The humiliation was complete. Clara's shoulders trembled. She had every right to be there, and yet she was being erased. That's when Ethan stepped forward. Boots against marble. Calm stride. Silent strength. He reached the table, pulled out the empty chair beside Clara, and spoke. "That's my seat." The room fell into complete, shocked silence. Conversations died mid-sentence. Waiters froze mid-step. All eyes locked on the man in a plain shirt, claiming a seat at one of the most exclusive tables in the city. Clara's pulse thundered in her ears. He hadn't asked permission, hadn't flinched at the disapproving stares. He simply stood there, steady as stone. The woman in the $1,000 suit bristled, preparing to object. But something in Ethan's voice, quiet, unyielding, stole the words from her throat. Slowly, reluctantly, she rose and slipped away to another table, muttering under her breath. Clara leaned closer, whispering, Do I know you?" For a fraction of a second, Ethan's eyes softened as though memory flickered behind them. He only said, "Sometimes the right people find each other when they need to." Clara's breath caught. A memory surfaced years earlier, when she had been cornered by paparazzi outside a studio. A stranger's hand had pulled her into safety, guiding her through a rain-soaked alley. She had never seen his face clearly, but the eyes, they were the same. Before she could speak, mocking voices rose again from nearby tables. "Well, this is rich," a man scoffed. "The help thinks he belongs among us." More laughter rippled. Ethan didn't react with anger. He looked at the speaker with steady calm. "I'm not playing dress-up," he said evenly. "I'm sitting where I belong." The words weren't shouted, but they cut sharper than any outburst. A ripple of unease spread across the room. Clara studied him. This man, this quiet stranger, had once saved her from a storm of flashing lights and cruel voices. Tonight, he was doing it again. Then, from the head table, a voice rang out. "Ladies and gentlemen." The speaker was Harrison Blackwood, silver-haired titan of industry, philanthropist, and the very reason the gala existed. The moment he stood, silence fell like a curtain. "I think it's time," Harrison said, his voice steady but carrying weight, "for our special announcement." Excitement surged through the crowd. This was what they'd been waiting for, the reveal of the mysterious VIP. Harrison's gaze swept the room before settling squarely on Ethan. "Many years ago," he began, "I was trapped in a burning warehouse. Smoke thick, walls collapsing, my escape gone. I was certain it was my final moment." Ethan's jaw tightened. His hand drifted to his pocket, brushing the outline of the small wooden box he always carried. "But then," Harrison continued, his voice trembling, "a young man ran into that inferno. He dragged me out, saved my life. And in the process, he left behind something of his own." Ethan slowly pulled the box from his pocket. He opened it with careful hands, revealing the burned leather strap, charred but unmistakable. "My watch," Harrison said, eyes glistening. "Destroyed in the flames. Only the strap survived. I have carried the memory ever since. I searched for the man who saved me. For years I searched." He pointed toward Ethan. "And tonight, he simply walked into this room and sat down." Gasps echoed across the ballroom. Cameras erupted in frenzied flashes. Ethan placed a burned strap on the table between them, a silent bridge between past and present. Harrison stepped from the head table and walked slowly, reverently, across the marble floor. Every guest turned to follow his progress. When he reached Ethan, he extended his hand. "If you are in this room," Harrison said firmly, "then any seat you choose belongs to you." The handshake was quiet, powerful. Two men bound not by wealth or status, but by a single act of courage. Applause thundered. Yet Ethan's expression remained unchanged, calm, humble, almost reluctant. But the night wasn't done shifting. Clara's eyes filled with tears as she reached into her purse. With trembling fingers, she pulled out something small, worn, and precious, a faded movie ticket, creased from years of being kept. "This," she whispered, placing it beside the watch strap, "was from a night you saved me. You slipped it into my hand when you pulled me through the paparazzi." Gasps rose again. "I was broke, ready to quit acting, certain I didn't belong. But that ticket reminded me, there are people who help without asking for anything back. That hope carried me through every rejection. Every time I wanted to quit, I kept this because it reminded me of you." She looked at him with shining eyes. "You changed my life with one small kindness." The cruel board member who had mocked Ethan earlier shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The same murmuring crowd that had laughed at him minutes before now stared in awe. Ethan only gave a small smile. Sometimes the smallest gestures create the biggest changes. Real applause filled the hall this time, raw, human, unpolished. Harrison raised his voice once more. "Tonight, we are reminded of something greater than power or wealth. True worth is measured not by influence, but by character. This man shaped my understanding of courage. He shaped hers with kindness. Tell me, what industry could claim a greater achievement?" The board member wilted under the billionaire's steady gaze. No one else dared object. From his pocket, Harrison withdrew a pristine white card, handwritten with only one line. He placed it on the table before Ethan. "This seat is always waiting for your return. I had this made 5 years ago," Harrison explained. "I carried it everywhere, hoping to present it when I found you." Clara's tears spilled freely. She placed her movie ticket beside the card and the burned strap, 3 objects on white linen, 3 lives forever tied together. At that moment, Lily ran forward from where she had been sitting quietly with her crayons. She held up her newest masterpiece, a grand table of chairs connected by rainbow-colored lines. She said, "I deserve the most beautiful seat," Ethan murmured softly. "But Maybe she was drawing something bigger than just one chair. Clara bent down to Lily's level, pressing the faded ticket into her small hands. "Keep this for me," she whispered, "because today I finally found my right seat, too." The girl accepted it solemnly, tucking it with her drawings. As the evening wound down, Ethan rose quietly, taking Lily's hand. Without fanfare, he began walking toward the exit. Harrison let him go, but not without a final gesture. He placed a white card carefully on Ethan's empty chair. No one dared touch it. No one dared sit in it. The orchestra played on. Conversations resumed. But that single empty chair remained the most powerful seat in the ballroom. Not for its luxury, but for the truth it now symbolized. Because sometimes the right person doesn't just claim a seat. Sometimes they redefine its meaning forever.